Hi folks, Astronomy Live. Today we're going to practice intercepting an interstellar object using Orbiter 2016. This paper was published on Archive. It's not peer-reviewed, but it is very interesting because it suggests that it might be possible to intercept the interstellar object, and I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, but something like Oumuamua. So, also known as A2017-U1, this object passed through our solar system and is now on its way out of the solar system. It's the first object in human history that's been discovered which seems to be an interstellar object having a strongly hyperbolic orbit. Long period comets that happen to be hyperbolic are generally just barely hyperbolic. They are just barely above solar escape velocity, having been just pushed over the edge. But this object is well above solar escape velocity, suggesting it does not come from our solar system. In fact, it comes from approximately the direction of the constellation Lyra, and it happens to be coming to us from a direction that is very close to what is called the solar apex, basically our solar system's velocity vector projected out onto the sky, which makes sense, especially given that its velocity relative to the other stars in our area of the galaxy seems to be pretty low, so our solar system is effectively running into it. And it passed through our solar system and is now on the way out of the solar system, and some might assume that means it's impossible for us to catch up to it with a spacecraft, but this paper does an analysis which suggests there are a number of scenarios in which such an object could be intercepted, and today we're going to take a look at one of those scenarios. Now let me see here if the stream is working correctly before I go forward. So bear with me for a second while I pull up the stream so that I can hopefully verify.
D-minus 10.
That didn't work. And let me mute myself so I don't get an echo. Okay, good. Looks like it's working. Can someone in the chat verify that my audio is coming in clear? Hopefully this is working well. I don't know if the Orbiter game audio is going to work or not. I'm going to try. I haven't actually done this particular kind of streaming before for this kind of program. So I'm using OBS once again. I've done this before with OBS when I did streaming of the end of the Cassini mission using NASA's Eyes on the Solar System program and bringing in some other media as well. But this time I'm going to be streaming Orbiter 2016, and I haven't used it with OBS before, so hopefully this works. But I'm going to go ahead and show you guys an interesting picture that was taken by the Hubble Space Telescope earlier this week. So hopefully you'll be able to see this. It's kind of grainy, and the processing I've done on it is honestly probably not all that great. But I downloaded the raw Hubble data for this picture. Hubble was pointed at Oumuamua and took images earlier this week. They're studying it, trying to track it, and hopefully that kind of astrometry can be used to refine the orbit even more, so that if in the next 10 years or so it was decided that NASA should go intercept this object, it would be possible to go do so and know accurately where it is, even if we can't see it anymore, because it is traveling away from Earth and getting dimmer and dimmer. Now, I did the best I could to try to process the Hubble pictures. They're filled with cosmic radiation, cosmic ray strikes all over the images, and so what I did is I took each of the raw images and stacked them with a minimum stack. So basically, any light source that was not constant between the images was eliminated. I also aligned the images based on the embedded WCS coordinates, World Coordinate System, which can be found in some FITS files that shows you what coordinates correspond to which pixels. Basically, you can find the coordinates of any given pixel in the image. So I took ephemeris of where the object was supposed to be as seen from the Hubble Space Telescope according to JPL horizons, and aligned the images based on those predicted coordinates so that the position of the object would stay constant from image to image. That required shifting the images relative to each other to line them up. Then I stacked them with the minimum stacking, and basically that should have eliminated all the all the noise from cosmic radiation, all the trailing stars in the background, and hopefully only left the object itself. And even then, it was very hard to see it in the image, but I think I found it, and I've circled it in red there. So this is a bit of a scoop, because this, as far as I can tell, this image has not been published by the media. They haven't even noticed that Hubble took this picture, or if they have, they, you know, don't have the skills to necessarily process these images. These are professional high-bit depth FITS files produced by the Hubble Space Telescope, and your typical Photoshop program can't open them properly. So I did all this processing and produced this image, and I'm sure when the authors who wrote the proposal to use Hubble to take this picture, when they get around to finishing their processing of the image and publish it, it'll probably be much higher quality than the image I've produced here, because due to the limitations of the software I was using to align the images, I could only align them to the nearest pixel, and this image is magnified here quite a bit with no interpolation, but I don't expect the alignment was going to be perfect, which may be why it has that shape. I don't expect that that shape is actually reflecting the true shape of the object, but really more to do with smearing due to imperfect alignment on my part due to the limitations of the software I was using. So that being said, it is kind of cool to still be able to see this object this many months after it made its closest approach to Earth and is now headed away from Earth. It's certainly too dim, far, far too dim for most amateur telescopes, including mine, at this point, at about magnitude 26.8. So, very dim object. Alright. So, CB says he's hearing me fine, thank you. It's a bit low. Alright, I can amplify the volume. Hopefully. Let me see. Okay, it doesn't give me any sort of boost. I amplified the volume as much as it would go. I'll try to speak closer to the mic. Hopefully that helps. So what is it? That's a great question. The Interstellar Object, it's thought now to be an asteroid. Initially, it looked like it might have cometary properties, but that did not seem to be true. And some of the earlier observations from Hubble seem to indicate that it was completely free of any surrounding gas or dust. It appears to be asteroid-like, but the shape is highly elongated, which is very unusual for asteroids. Even small asteroids don't tend to be this thin and elongated. And so there's been some speculation in the tabloids that perhaps it's a derelict alien ship. I personally don't think that's very likely. The spectra that have been recorded of it suggest it is similar in some ways to Kuiper Belt objects and other far distant objects that have spent a long time in deep space being exposed to UV radiation, and it's kind of got this reddish color to it, and the spectra looks kind of like a rock. However, that being said, I took a look at the spectrum data that was recorded of it that's been published so far, and it's extremely noisy because it's a very dim object. So it's a very low signal-to-noise ratio, so I think it's hard to draw any real strong conclusions from that, other than the overall color is reddish. Okay. Who knows? Maybe it's an alien ship that's camouflaged to look like a rock, and it happens to be dead and tumbling. It is tumbling, so whatever it is isn't maneuvering as far as anyone can tell. But it is very cool, because it's the first object in human history that's been seen to come from outside of our solar system, passing through our solar system. So I want to take a look at the possibility of intercepting it using Orbiter. And so let me turn off the Hubble image there. And so now we have the Orbiter screen visible. And we've set up for an intercept here. Hopefully I don't have to reset the state of the simulation. I might have to go back because... Yeah, unfortunately I left it sit here for quite a few minutes while I was setting up the stream. And my launch window might have already gone by. It's been a long time since I've used Orbiter myself, so bear with me, I'm a bit rusty. Ooh, yeah. That's what I was afraid of. Okay. Well, I tell you what, I am going to reset the simulator here, so give me a second. I'm going to go ahead and reset the simulation because... I let it sit for too long and my launch window kind of went away from me a bit. even then, it's not, the launch site isn't perfectly positioned for this, so it's not the most efficient launch. I'm sure you could come up with a much more efficient launch to intercept this asteroid. If you were going for points, style points here, you could do a much better job than what I'm going to do. But oh dear, yeah, I forgot about that. Okay, so I'll show you guys what I'm working on here now. So I reset the simulator. We are going to slow down time acceleration to 1/10 normal speed, unless that messes up our MFD refresh rate, which it might. Okay. Yeah, that's glacial. We're not going to do 1/10 speed. We'll go full speed here. So I'm using TransX to come up with an intercept course. But TransX seems to be a bit glitchy when trying to intercept an interstellar object that's traveling at a hyperbolic velocity. Basically, I spawned in a Delta Glider, which is the default sci-fi ship that this game comes with. And I spawned it in on the same trajectory as the interstellar object. So I downloaded the state vectors from JPL and put them into the simulator. And so the object is actually traveling along, the spacecraft that I spawned in is actually traveling along the exact same trajectory as the real interstellar object, and we're going to try to intercept it. So to sort of unglitch TransX here, which is the MFD tool down here, it's actually on both sides. If you're not familiar with Orbiter, Orbiter gives you multifunctional displays, these tools that you can download. You can download additional tools from a mod's website and use them to plot intercept courses and go to visit other planets and do all this stuff. So we're going to do that now, and I'm going to, we'll do course. I'm going to have to unglitch it here by basically rewinding the eject date, telling it that I'm going to leave even sooner than current time, and then fast forward it back to current time, because that seems to fix it. I'm not sure why, but it does. Oops, I went back too far, I think. Okay, now we're going to go forward to an eject date just after current time. So the eject date is given in modified Julian day format, and the current time in the simulator is June 1st, 2017. So we're going to use the SLS rocket. This is a mod I downloaded of the orange tank version of the SLS rocket in the Block 1 format. Basically the version of the rocket that's currently being worked on by NASA. They're planning to launch it now in 2019. But let's just pretend for a second that it was already available and that we could launch a SLS rocket with a small payload, a small probe of some sort, to try to intercept this object. If we had known about it back in June, could we have sent a rocket to go intercept it? So, close approach, this is given in meters. I went too far there. And so that's 30 million meters. Oops, too far again. It's a little bit finicky, so I have to adjust the amount I'm adjusting each of the variables here. This is how you use TransX. Again, I expect a lot of people here on the stream may not be familiar with this, and I'm sorry if I'm going a little fast to keep up if you're totally unfamiliar with the Orbiter, but we can discuss more of it once I get into orbit here. Basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to set up my parking orbit. I'm trying to set up variables that tell me that I'll be able to intercept the object and give me a good parking orbit to then go out and intercept it. And it'll also give me the data I need on how much velocity I'm going to need to intercept it. How fast do I have to make my spacecraft go to intercept this this object. So now we're down to 517 kilometers at closest approach. That's pretty good. And really, we're not going to be able to get perfect accuracy out of TransX. I'm not 100% sure, but I think TransX has certain limitations that it doesn't necessarily account for the perturbations of the planets. And so you'll notice the close approach distance drifts over time. That's to be expected. That's normal behavior from what I've seen. So, for example, if we get this down to maybe a 1 kilometer close approach, that doesn't necessarily mean if we execute that perfectly, it's going to be a 1 kilometer close approach. It'll be different. So we're going to have to do mid-course corrections to tune up the orbit as we go, and hopefully we'll be able to do that. Alright, so now close approach is 15 kilometers. That's really as good as we can hope for. And you can see it's already drifted. It's already changing the number there, and I haven't even touched anything. So that's going to happen. We'll just have to tune that with the course corrections later on. But let's take a look now on the left screen. This tells us the launch heading, but we need to get this white line to sit over the green ellipse in order for that number to be accurate. So the other thing we also have to do is PE distance. It's Periapsis Distance. We want that to be reasonable. We're not going to go to that high in orbit. We're going to be in a very low orbit when we leave Earth, so we can maximize the Oberth effect. And again, I wish I had more time to sort of cover all these terms, but basically the Oberth effect gives you more efficiency, more bang for your buck. You get the most bang for your buck when you are conducting your burns close to the planet of origin. So we're going to aim for an orbit that's no more than about 200 kilometers high at its lowest point. And so now we change the variable. We're changing to EG orientation, EJ orientation, ejection orientation. Tune that up so that it goes over the green ellipse, and this tells us we need a heading of 137 degrees. Now we're going to go to our launch autopilot, tell it that we've got the SLS rocket, and we're going to go to a heading of 139 actually. I've already tested this a bit. I didn't get all the way there, but I did test it to find out that actually this is a little under what we need by about 2 degrees, maybe 2.1. Okay, that's good enough. And now we're going to go. First of all, here's our rocket. This is a derpy version of the SLS rocket. This is, again, the Block 1 SLS that NASA's currently working on, with a dinky little probe stuck in the top instead of an Orion capsule. Now, I don't have a mesh, a 3D model for a good payload fairing here, so we're just omitting the payload fairing. You would never do this. You would never launch a delicate satellite just open to the air like this under normal circumstances. You would have to have a payload fairing, but we don't have one. Fortunately, Orbiter doesn't simulate aerodynamic damage to that probe, so we're not going to care. We're gonna cut corners here a little bit. All right, we're good to go. Good to go. Let's give that one more. All right, launch. So this is using Orbiter 2016. I just downloaded the latest version of Orbiter. Actually, I've been using 2010 for a long time. So the rocket's autopilot is rotating us onto the correct heading. This is also a very odd heading. You would normally not see launches go to this southern heading from Cape Canaveral or Kennedy Space Center. I'm pretty sure this is going to drop the SRBs over Cuba, but it's a simulator, so I don't care. Oops. Okay, just making sure everything's still going here. I don't think it's recording the desktop audio, actually. Well, that's unfortunate. Oh, well. So. I'm not going to try to go crazy with that. I'm just going to leave well enough alone. Can anyone tell me if you hear the roar of any engines? I don't think you do, from what I'm seeing in my broadcasting software. There's no sound effects coming from the game, are there? I'm guessing not. But I'm not going to try to dally with that too much. There go the SRBs. Okay, so they're probably not going to reach Cuba, but still, you wouldn't want to launch necessarily over another country. They might not be totally happy with that in case something goes wrong. So this probably wouldn't happen at this heading. But depending on when you plan your launch window, you might be able to get a different heading and head more due east instead of southern, like this. Again, this is a simulator, we don't really care, and from what I can tell, we seem to have a little bit of spare delta V with a small probe like this up top. You couldn't launch, say, a full manned spacecraft on this kind of trajectory in the SLS, but you could stick a smaller probe up there and put it on the intercept course for this interstellar object, and that's what we're going to do, hopefully successfully. So our relative inclination should be dropping, it is. We're aiming for an inclination of about 75.12 degrees. The actual inclination is shown here, but this is not the final number. Obviously it's changing as our orbit expands. Now, I should also point out something else that a lot of people may not know about real-world rockets. Now, this is a simulator that lets you do things that you might not necessarily be able to do in real life. One of those things is restarting the engines as many times as you like. Most spacecraft in this simulator will let you do that, unless they are designed to be highly realistic. There are some that restrict you from restarting the engines more than the realistic number of times that the engine was actually designed to start. Most rocket engines, for most boosters, can only start once. They only have the ignition fuel to light up once. They don't have all the mechanics necessary to restart, like a SpaceX engine. SpaceX has engines that are designed to restart multiple times. That's how they turn around, boost back, fly back, and land, like they did the other day for CRS-13. But this rocket is not designed with that in mind, so normally once you shut these main engines off, you can't restart them. So you can go into your parking orbit, but even if you have fuel left over, under normal circumstances you wouldn't be able to use that fuel because you wouldn't be able to start the engines again. The simulator for this particular rocket, as it stands right now, doesn't restrict you from doing that. You could cheat effectively and turn on the engines again. For realism, I'm not going to do that. I am actually going to kick off the rocket stage once we reach our initial parking orbit, even though there's going to be a bit of fuel left over that could be used. And so what we're doing is we're waiting for the Periapsis Distance, the point closest to the planet, to be outside of the planet. Right now, what this is showing is if Earth were a point mass, with all of its mass concentrated in the center, and a somewhat elliptical orbit. Furthest distance from the planet is about 400 kilometers. Closest distance is 133 kilometers. We're almost at the closest point now, dropping very slowly back, but then we'll hit the closest point in our orbit, and then head back out to a higher altitude. So that's a stable, that should be a stable orbit. I'm going to go ahead and jettison the first, or core stage, not really first stage, but core stage here, the orange tank, because in a real life situation you couldn't restart these engines now. And yeah, I could cheat that, but I'm not going to. Plus, it also makes things a little trickier if you're trying to plan the long ejection burn towards the interstellar object, because you want to have a constant thrust level for that. Otherwise it makes it a lot trickier to calculate when to start your engines. So I've now jettisoned the interim cryogenic propulsion stage. I think it's called ICPS, and this is what's actually going to propel an Orion capsule to beyond the moon, or just beyond the moon, for EM1, the EM1 mission that NASA is currently working on, and that's supposed to be the first test flight of the SLS rocket sometime in 2019. But instead of an Orion capsule, we have this dinky little satellite, which is just sort of a dummy mass that I've got on here to simulate having a small probe that we are going to take to intercept the interstellar asteroid. Alright, so now we need to get back to planning our escape trajectory. So let me fire up TransX again. So right now we're in a parking orbit, which is pretty well aligned. It's about half a degree off in inclination. It's not great, but it's not horrific either. We can deal with it. So what we have to do now is we have to go into maneuver mode and basically undo all of these variables here, but not before we take a look at this number, delta V, 4.396. We need to remember that. 4,396 meters per second, that is the delta V we need to give our spacecraft to kick it onto the intercept trajectory in about 4,000 seconds. So basically 3/4 of the way around our orbit, when we reach this point, that's when we're going to turn on our engine and fly out towards the interstellar object. So first thing, we got to turn off all these variables, but again, we need to remember this number, 4,396. Alright. So we need to reset all the variables that I put in to put us in the parking orbit, and we basically, it's almost like you have to do it again, but it's more accurate doing it this way. And again, I apologize for kind of flying through some of these things without fully explaining, but it's a time-sensitive issue in the simulator, because you have a limited amount of time till you come back around on that orbit, and you need to be ready to fly off at this point. So we just have to get things set up, and then maybe we can cover some more of the ground, especially when we get to the mid-course correction. That'll be a little less time-sensitive. Okay, so now we've got that. So we go to maneuver mode. Oh dear. Well, I didn't fully mess up. I did mess up a little bit. I forgot. Like I said, I'm rusty. It's been a long time since I've done this. But really what I should have done is I should have left those variables in place until I overlap my maneuver. So do as I say, not as I do. But it's okay. I kind of know it should be oriented this way, basically. And we'll see it over here, close approach distance. We can tune that up. So, So I also have a bit of a news announcement that I want to get to later. And that is, we're going to be doing a charity live stream again. So I did one a couple years ago, the Light Bucket Challenge, and I want to do another charity live stream fundraiser. As many of you know, I do not make money with this channel. I do not accept donations. I do not monetize my videos. However, on occasion, I will do a charity stream and let you guys donate directly to a charity and you know, live stream from the telescope or what have you. So I'm tentatively planning for that to occur on December 26th, day after Christmas, or evening after Christmas. If the weather's good, I will be streaming from the telescope And if the weather's not good, we'll figure something else out. Maybe we'll just do more of this. And this is kind of why, partly why I'm doing this stream today, is to test the idea of doing Orbiter Simulator type stuff in a live stream. It's not something I really have experience with, so needed to test that today. So now we advance the ejection date to bring it around to the correct portion of the orbit. Oh dear. Okay. It's doing that glitchy thing again. Gosh, I hope I don't get stuck here. I hope I don't end up in a situation where... Okay. Maybe... Maybe I can unglitch it. Maybe it'll let me. Please let me. Please be nice. Please. Okay. Okay. No. Doesn't look like it's going to work. Nope. Okay. Well, that's not good. That's a bad thing. Okay, so it's glitched out because it thinks the closest approach is going to be when my spacecraft is here in the orbit, and when the interstellar object is way out here. That's not even true. That's wrong. That's just wrong. I'm already closer to the object than that distance right now, and it thinks that close approach time is going to be way into the future. For some reason, it's not seeing. It's not seeing the actual close approach time. Orbits to intercept. No, it's not. You dummy. At this point, I'm just... At this point, I'm just fooling around. Okay, let me try one more time. Because sometimes it seems like if I rewind time on the ejection date and then fast forward it, it will get wise and do what it's supposed to do, but it doesn't. Gosh, it just does not look like it will. No, it just won't. Yow. Okay, well, I might have to reset it, unfortunately, but I will, if I do, I will time accelerate it so that we don't have to wait for the whole launch thing again. We'll just have to... Oh, man. Transx, you kill me. You slay me. Alright. Let me try one more trick up my sleeve. Eject date. Maybe? Maybe you'll let me. No, that doesn't affect anything. Okay, let me turn off... You know what? Let me turn off maneuver mode. That might be a way to do this. Okay, let's reset this. Variable. Maneuver mode off. Let's turn that off. Okay. Now... let's do none, and then we will retarget the ship / interstellar object. And now, okay, because I might be able to jog its memory this way without the maneuver mode. Okay, hang on a second. Sorry, let me pull up, because I did have the data saved for what it should be. So what are we on? We are on close up. Oh, no, outward. Okay, outward should be -2.291. -2. .291. Close enough. Okay, and then change plane. That should be 4.811. Okay, yeah, no, that does make sense. Okay. Okay. And then prograde 693.6. Prograde 6. .693. Close enough. Okay, and then now hopefully we can unglitch it. So let's go to ejection date. I take ejection date way back into the past. This is why it's good to have a good amount of time available before you actually have to do the ejection burn, so that you can fix problems like this without getting into trouble. Okay, now as I come forward, the close approach distance drops to what it really will be. Otherwise, you're just fumbling around in the dark. You don't know what the close approach distance is. You have no idea if you're going to miss the target by a million miles or hit it. Okay, close approach. So this should be... ejection date should be around 57905 or 6. Which is the current date in the sim. Okay, right about there. So see, close approach distance is now 20 millimeter or 30 millimeters, basically 13,000 kilometers. Oops, now it's going back up. So when it starts going back up, you know you've gone too far in adjusting it. So this is the optimum, about close to the optimum right now. But you have to basically, the variables are interdependent, so you want to adjust the variables to minimize this number, and as you adjust them, you'll see that number shift. So what we can do now, hopefully, what we can do is turn on maneuver mode. Please work. And so we are going to, well, first of all, let's get this tuned in again. Unfortunately, we have to do that. Outward 291. Let's make that 291. Oops. See, it's already dropping again. Get that down to its minimum. Change planes. Get that down to its minimum. Yeah, now we're talking. Under 1,000 kilometers, close approach distance now. That's good. see how even a tiny change there just bumps it way out. So you have to be pretty careful. Okay. Okay, there's not much more we can do with that variable. Ejection date, let's go really fine here. Let's find the minimum. Going back up, so we've went a little too far. Now we're down to 480 kilometers. Let's adjust this. 279. Oh, that's a good one. See how quickly that changed close approach distance? That tells us it was out of tune, essentially. So that we're able to get much closer by tuning that up. And change planes is probably a bit out of tune. Oh, yeah. Okay, about 100 kilometers. I mean, that's good for now. So now what we do is we view this again. So now we have a delta. This number makes more sense to me from my previous testing of 4.4 kilometers per second, 4.423. And we have a relative inclination 0.4 degrees. Okay, fine. So now it's saying 4.424. Fine, 4.424. So what we want to do is we want to change that to reflect the same number, 4.424. That reflects the same number. Now, the next big thing we need to change is basically the time of the burn. So we're pulling that. This line indicates where you're going to be in your green orbit when you do the burn. So that should overlap with the other one. But we also need to pay attention here. Oops. Okay, actually it's over here. Where's the variable? Ejection date should be close to this number, 57906.3. So that's in a little less than a day in the simulator, so we need to make sure that's about the same. 6.5. So if we bring it back earlier a little bit, that'll help. 0.3. Okay. Oop. Right, let's go more careful. So as you can see, it may not even be possible to be exactly on time with that, but it would be close. Curious thing is it feels like something's not right. Change planes, base orbit. Oh. Huh? Outward. Oh, I'm sorry. I completely messed that up. We need to reset that. It's not supposed to be outward velocity. It's supposed to be, that's basically if you're pointing away from the planet and burning, that's the wrong direction. You want to go prograde. You want to go along your velocity vector. We want prograde. Prograde velocity should be 4.424. Is that still right? Huh. Now it says 4.433. Jeez, this number keeps changing. Let's get it close anyway. That's better, because it should overlap. These lines should overlap when you've got it done right. That's what we're going for. Okay, that's about right. And then date, let's carefully adjust the ejection time so that these lines basically overlap like that. Okay, cool. Now, here comes the moment of truth. Let's hope this works this time. So we have it set up here. Our intercept right here is 100 kilometers. It's not going to be, it's not a perfect overlap, so it's not going to be exactly 100 kilometers. When we turn off, we're simulating, how to put this, we've got the variables put in on this side that we have to turn off because this is not maneuver node. And then we have to see how well we've lined it up and then tune it. But it shouldn't jump, it shouldn't glitch out, hopefully. Hope is not a plan, I know, but it's all we got at the moment. Okay. Reset. Good, good. Okay, so we reset all the variables. It did not glitch this time. So you see that there's two dotted lines coming out from the center here. One reflects where we're going to be in our orbit, the other reflects where the interstellar object is going to be. We want that point to be as close as possible, right? We want that to be, and actually this needs to be reset too. So actually, nope, never mind. I thought we had turned on, I thought we were on maneuver node here. Actually, we're still on simulated. Okay, good. We're still good. We're still good. So now there's no dotted line. Now it's a green line. This reflects what will actually happen if we execute this maneuver perfectly. Closest approach distance is 725,000 kilometers. Doesn't sound all that close, but that's about twice the distance to the moon, roughly. So it's not that bad. We can tune that up. And what we can do here is we can now edit these variables to try to make this better, right? So we want to start changing things here slightly to get this number down to a minimum. So like I said, again, this is why it's good to have plenty of time available in case a glitch happens, so that you're able to fix it before it's time to go. Because when this green line reaches this dotted line, we got to have the engines on. We got to be ready to go, and we have to know where we're going. So I'm not going to edit that. I will edit this maybe. Yeah, that's a good move. That's good. Good. It's probably too far. Yeah, it's too far. Come on. Okay, that's good enough on that variable. It's as good as we can get anyway. Alright. That's too much. Oh, that's good. Oh, that's really good. Okay. Okay. 43. Going up. Okay. So now we're at about 43,000 kilometers closest approach. See how much that's already tuned it up? And that's only going to cost us 98 meters per second, which is nothing compared to the full maneuver, which is 4,437 meters per second. But we might need a little bit of outward velocity to, basically we're pushing the velocity vector around that we're going to get on with our burn to get out to the object. To minimize our close approach distance. We want to get as close to that interstellar object as possible to see if it can be done with the SLS. That's about minimum there. Change planes. Okay, it's coming down. 6,000, 5,000. Oop, coming back up. Just under 5,000 kilometers. Let's try changing the prograde velocity really, really gradually here. Okay. That's a good move. Those of you who might be familiar with Kerbal Space Program, there's probably more of you than people familiar with Orbiter, I'm guessing, but it's similar in a way to Kerbal's tools. Obviously, these are tools that users of the simulator have made in Orbiter, and it's more numerical and less graphical. So Kerbal Space Program is definitely more intuitive for beginners, but this gives you perhaps more accuracy in planning a course, and you can do some pretty fancy maneuvers, slingshots and all of that. We're not going to go to that extent today. We're just doing a direct intercept. You could do a more efficient intercept using gravitational slingshots, and I'll talk about that a little bit later once we get out of here, once we get on course. Okay, but now our closest approach, notice K for 1,000 kilometers, so we're down to 230 kilometers, or sorry, 1,000 kilometers, 1,000 meters, pardon me. So we're now down to 230,000 meters, or 230 kilometers, close approach distance. Outward. Let's adjust this really gradually. Oh, too much. Too much. Okay, that's as good as that variable's going to get. Change planes. Gradually adjust this. Yeah, that's good. Now we're getting down under 100 kilometers. Close approach distance. Under 50. Just about 50, okay. Okay, good. Alright, and then let's change you. 25. Oh, look at that, we cut it in half. 86, okay, it went back up. But there you go. Okay, so we're now at about close approach distance of 11 kilometers. So if this maneuver were executed perfectly and there were no gravitational perturbations and everything was just perfectly Keplerian, Newtonian, all the rest, you would almost hit the object. You would pass within 11 kilometers of the interstellar object if you executed this burn perfectly. Now, as far as I can tell, and I could be wrong about this, it's been a while, again, since I played Orbiter, but it doesn't appear that there's an autopilot anymore. I could have sworn there used to be an auto burn capability that TransX could automatically execute the burn for you and keep it steering perfectly at the vector it's supposed to be pointed at. But it doesn't appear that's the case, and maybe I'm misremembering what it used to be, but yeah, that doesn't seem to be the case. So we're supposed to begin the burn in 67,000 seconds. We'll fast forward time to get closer to that point. Yeah, you know, let's just fast forward time now. I'm gonna save, quick save, Control S. Hopefully saves that maneuver, but it may not. Hopefully we don't end up crashing the program or have to quit for any reason, because if you reload the program, these numbers can change dramatically. You can get that glitch occurring again, which is not good. And actually, we're actually a lot further from the start of the burn than I thought. We're not going to burn on this orbit. This is clearly several orbits from now. It's just when it's going to be most efficient to leave. And you can see this number keeps changing. The close approach distance keeps changing as the interstellar object gets perturbed by gravity of the planets, and as our orbit around the Earth here is actually changing too. We're having orbital drag from the atmosphere, non-spherical gravity, all this stuff is torquing the orbit, and so we're not exactly on the orbit that we initially were when we set up the burn. So that number will change a bit, but not enough to really matter, because we're going to be making a course correction along the way anyway, I'm sure. Let's just accelerate time and get down to close to the beginning of the maneuver. But I almost forgot something very important. Oh, no, wait, I didn't. Okay, good. I thought I hadn't... Okay. I thought I hadn't ejected the core stage yet. I forgot I had done that. Good thing I didn't hit eject again. Okay. So that would have kicked off the little probe, and you wouldn't even be able to get the probe out of orbit. As far as I know, that little probe doesn't have any fuel of its own. It's just sort of a dummy mass here to simulate a mission, but it's not terribly fancy. So we want to look at this begin burn time. We want to get this down pretty close to the maneuver time. and then we'll orient ourselves for the burn. Let me make sure the stream's still running. This is a good time to just check on things here real quick. Everything good? Everything looks good. Yeah, this is just a simulation. Okay. So I've also included a link to the simulator in the video description. It should be there for Orbiter 2016. If you have any interest in space simulators, I highly recommend you check it out because they have quite a number of realistic spacecraft available. So with Kerbal Space Program, I won't say it's a little more, well, it is a little more gamey, I guess, in its design. You know, it's kind of got more game elements to it. This is more of a pure simulator, but there's also some very realistic mods available. There's an Apollo mod I'm particularly fond of called NASSP, or I pronounce it NASSP, and basically you can run the original Apollo guidance computer software, and the simulator will emulate the original Apollo hardware, and the guidance computer software will think that it's flying to the moon again, basically, and it will steer your virtual spacecraft to the moon in the simulator. Of course, that's easier said than done because it's quite involved. You actually use pretty much the real Apollo checklists to fly a virtual spacecraft to the moon and back, and they just released their latest version not too long ago. And so I highly recommend you check it out if you have any interest in Apollo or real space missions. The simulator is great for that. I would say better than Kerbal Space Program. I know you can use like the Realistic Solar System mod. A lot of people enjoy doing that and sort of simulating realistic spacecraft, but I consider that to be a bit of a pale shadow compared to what this can do in terms of realism for simulating spacecraft. I mean, with the Apollo mod that I'm talking about, you even have simulated sextants and telescopes for sighting on stars to align the inertial platform. So the gyroscopes on the inertial platform will drift over time, and eventually the spacecraft will lose its pointing orientation if you don't align on the stars the way that the Apollo astronauts actually did when they traveled to the moon and back. And so you get to do all of that. And I mean, it's so particular and accurate that they actually had to use in the mod, they had to pull up old data on the positions of the stars because of precession and because of proper motion. The stars' current positions relative to the Earth's axis of rotation is not quite where they were in the late 60s, early 70s when the Apollo missions were actually occurring. And that is important enough that you can see the difference. If you point at where the simulator shows the stars as being basically in the year 2000, it's not going to be quite where they were when the Apollo astronauts were pointing at them. It's more true for some stars than others depending on their proper motion, but a high proper motion star like, say, Arcturus, it matters big time. And so you have to actually point at where the stars used to be, and so they include little boxes showing where the stars were in the late 60s, early 70s when the Apollo missions were actually occurring. So it's pretty cool stuff. This spacecraft, the SLS, it's a pretty basic mod. It doesn't have too fancy. It's not like you're running what will be the actual flight software for SLS or anything fancy like that, but it is accurate enough to simulate what it can launch, how much it can launch, where it can send it, that kind of thing. And that's what we're really doing here today, is simulating what an SLS type rocket could do in terms of trying to intercept a very fast moving interstellar object as it passes through the solar system. The paper I started off this webcast showing you guys, I'll talk more about that later once we get this burn done, but it presented multiple scenarios. One was the idea of launching a spacecraft in June of this year, basically before it was even discovered, which is what we're simulating here today, for a very quick intercept. But there's also scenarios for much longer intercepts that take decades. We're not going to do that today, that would be too lengthy, and also involves some very fancy slingshot maneuvers. one of which they call the solar flyby. So basically, you swing by Jupiter to pick up a gravity assist, and then you swing back by the Sun. Normally, you can't really get much in the way of gravity assist from swinging by the Sun. You can reorient your orbit, but the way orbital mechanics works, you don't normally get a gravity assist in terms of getting to other planets that way, but you're not trying to get to another planet. You're trying to get to an interstellar object, and so the frame of reference kind of changes a bit, and it actually makes sense to do that. And so the paper presents the idea of doing a Jupiter flyby and then a Sun flyby to get out to this object in a few decades. And even then, you would have to use a very large launcher like the SLS or the proposed SpaceX BFR, Big Falcon rocket, to do the job. And you would want to do that in the next 10 years. They presented scenarios for launching in 2025 to do that. But they also talked about the idea that, you know, this may not be the only interstellar object we discover. There may be one that we find later on. And so it might be an interesting idea to have a project where they build a spacecraft designed to intercept an interstellar object to be launched on something like an SLS or a BFR, and just keep it in standby. Just keep it in a warehouse somewhere, waiting for the discovery of such an object, so that if you can find one before it reaches the closest approach to the Sun, you know, maybe at least a few months before, like this, you can then launch your spacecraft to intercept it before it gets too far out, and that way you can do a fairly quick intercept in a year or even less. If you notice, our encounter MJD here, 58037, you know, that's only that's less than 100 days from the current time in the simulator, so that's a pretty darn quick intercept. So you could do that as it swings through, and that's what we're doing here. So I got to watch the time now. We're getting closer now, 6,000 to our intercept, and you can see already the close approach distance has changed quite a bit. We're up to 100 kilometers now. 100 kilometers here or there isn't really going to matter. That's not going to take much of a correction burn to fix, so I'm not going to be too worried about that on the departure, because it's going to be, you know, we're going to be covering, even in less than 100 days, so much space, so much distance that a small correction burn can trim that right out. But we want to get away from the influence of the Earth and Moon before we start doing correction burns. And at that time, hopefully, we'll have a better idea of how close we're going to be able to get. The other issue, the limitation, is that with Orbiter 2016, the one thing about it is it's not backwards compatible with every mod that used to be available. And so what we're actually going to have to do is, once we get out towards this object for the close approach, I'm going to transfer the scenario over to the earlier version of Orbiter, Orbiter 2010, which I also have installed with the same mods. But there's a mod that does not work under the current version of Orbiter called Telescope MFD, and that'll let us hopefully track and zoom in on the object as we go whizzing by it very quickly. I'm not sure what we'll see, if it'll render properly, but I'm going to try to do that to show you guys what an intercept like that would actually look like in real time, because it's going to be very quick. And counter velocity is going to be 60 kilometers per second, so really high velocity. Okay, we're down to 700 seconds till the burn should start, so I'm going to go ahead and start getting the spacecraft oriented for the burn. It's going to be in a mostly prograde type direction. And you can see we need to administer 4,439 meters per second delta V. That's change in velocity. That's how fast we got to make this thing go compared to what it's doing right now. We got to kick this spacecraft up 4,400 meters per second. And that's going to take most of our fuel, which is why you need SLS to do this job. You need to be able to put a very powerful upper stage in orbit, and this upper stage is fully fueled. We didn't use any of the fuel of the upper stage getting into orbit, because the first stage was able to do that for us, or the core stage was able to do that for us in its entirety. So okay. Don't want to accelerate past it, but I don't want to wait 10 minutes to get up to the burn maneuver. Alright. Okay, 1 minute to maneuver. Let's go ahead and rotate the spacecraft. We're actually going to be pointing at the Earth when we start the burn. Hopefully we don't hit the atmosphere too much. So that little green X on this screen on the left here, that's what we got to aim at. We got to get the crosshairs as close as we can to that. But it only updates every half second or so, so it's a little tricky to point at, which is why I would love to have an auto burn autopilot. But I don't have one. Okay. 15 seconds. We're pretty close to that X now. Good enough, anyway. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, burn. Engines on. Now for the long burn. So now it's just a matter of trying to steer the spacecraft to keep that crosshair close to the X. While we do that, let me take a look at what's our altitude? 297 kilometers. Oh yeah, we'll be fine. Yeah, we'll be fine. We're not gonna get drugged by the atmosphere too much here or anything like that. But it is going to take a while. I know it's a bit like watching paint dry in some respects, but that's how this would actually be. It's a long burn because we gotta pour on a lot of velocity, and this is gonna put us on a trajectory to hopefully intercept this interstellar object in a pretty short period of time within the simulator. Oh, Brian, are you hearing the volume in the sim? Brian asks if I can lower the sim volume before the event. Much rather hear my description. I didn't think the sim was transmitting any volume. It didn't seem like the broadcaster was picking up the volume from the game. Can someone confirm if do you hear the sound effects from the game at all? I didn't think you did. So as you can see, that green X is not in a fixed location. I've actually killed my rotational velocity here. Kill route. Keep executing that. So the green X is actually moving. This represents the velocity vector we want to point at to be on course for intercept. And we're not going to be able to perform that perfectly because we don't have an autopilot for that. So I've just done the best I can with the control keys here. I've got a joystick too, but it's a little hard to tell if I'm out of the dead zone or not. Probably should have turned the dead zone off. Oh, you do hear the game sounds. Okay, sorry. Turn off desktop audio. Okay, tell me, do you hear the game sounds now? That should have muted it. That's weird. I didn't know it was transmitting. I'm sorry, guys, because I'm looking at desktop audio that OBS is picking up, and it shows nothing. So I assumed it wasn't picking it up. Volume back again. Did it go away for a second? Did the shoot, did the volume mute itself for a second and then come back? Okay, no, okay, so it's muted now. Good. Alright, sorry about that. Alright, cool. So let's see how our orbit is doing. So as you can see, we're already in a highly elliptical, well, somewhat elliptical Earth orbit. Eccentricity 0.2. That will be pretty well above 1, I think, by the time we're done. This green line, though, does not reflect our current orbit. This is what we are aiming to achieve, but we'll have to turn off maneuver mode on TransX to see how the burn actually performed, to see how we did in terms of meeting up with what we were going for. So the close approach distance that we actually achieve will probably not be this number. It'll probably be a higher number, maybe even much higher, but within the ballpark is good enough at this stage, because like I said, we will be performing a mid-course correction maneuver to put us on a much tighter intercept trajectory. Now, I've noticed in the testing I did beforehand that if you exit the game and come back in, it completely glitches TransX. And I think, again, that that's because this is an interstellar object on a hyperbolic trajectory, and I don't think it really knows how to handle that all that well. It doesn't seem to handle it all that well, anyway. So the key is just basically don't leave the game until you're ready for the actual intercept, until you get really close. So once we get close to the object, then I'll exit the sim and load up the 2010 version, where we can use the telescope MFD, which will let the view automatically track the object as we fly by. And the object in this case is just the default spacecraft that I spawned in on the same trajectory as the Interstellar Object Oumuamua. So you can also see we have a negative time on beginning the maneuver, and that's correct because we've already started the engines. Time to maneuver is basically time to the middle of the maneuver, I think. Not the, I don't think that's time to end of the maneuver. I'm pretty sure it's time to the middle of it. And then, of course, the delta V remaining. And as you can see, this is not the fastest accelerating spacecraft. It's, you know, it's accelerating, but not all that quickly. So you can see the exterior view here. Ooh, little boxes coming out the back end. Yeah, that's some sort of graphical glitch. I'm not sure what causes that. It's not great. It doesn't normally, well, I shouldn't say it doesn't normally do that. It's been doing that to me a lot. I'm not sure if that's a glitch with the graphical client. I'm using the D939 or something like that client, DirectX 9 version of the client. There's the core of the game or simulator simulates the physics and all of that, but they've actually separated the graphical portion from the physics portion of the engine. So the developer who created this, Martin, I forget his last name, he developed all the physics for all of this and did a really great job with that. And he had a basic graphics client that was in use for years, but starting with one of the more recent versions, he separated out the graphics client from the physics client so that others who are in the community supporting this game can work on their own versions of the graphics client that are more graphically intensive, higher graphics fidelity, and keep that separate from the rest of the engine. So that's kind of cool. So you can use different versions of the graphics client with the same base version of the physics that are running it. So yeah, it's, you know, it's pretty nice in terms of the graphics. It's not perhaps the prettiest space game that's out there, but it shows you some nice views, and they've got 3D terrain and stuff now, from what I can tell, which is really cool. Like I said, I just installed the 2016 version very recently. I've been lagging behind with the 2010 version because there are certain mods like the telescope MFD that are only compatible with that version. They're not compatible with the newest version, the 2016 version, and that's unfortunate, but I guess it's necessary based on how they've diced up the engine now and added on to it and all of that. So yeah, we're now reaching the midpoint of the maneuver in 70 seconds, and we'll keep burning until delta V reaches 0. can see our orbit around Earth is now much more elliptical than it was before. Our altitude is 215 kilometers and climbing. Not all that high, and that's good because that means we're maximizing the Oberth effect. You get more bang for your buck when you conduct your burns closer to your parent object. So yeah, any questions in the chat? Oh, Brian says, I thought the burn ended 30-second burn. No, the burn's still going. The main engine bar here is at maximum, and so the engines are running. I don't know why the hover engines are turned on. There is no hover engine on the spacecraft, so that does nothing. I'm not sure what the key is for that. It's been too long, so I don't know why it's like that, but it doesn't matter. And our main engine propellant, we're about half. Our tanks are about half full now, and we still have 2,000 meters a second. But because of the way the rocket equation works, you actually get more acceleration as your tanks get emptier. Your spacecraft mass goes down, so your spacecraft starts accelerating more for the same amount of fuel. So you get more bang for your buck off those last few gallons of fuel, basically. So we actually still have quite a bit of delta V available, and I'm pretty sure we'll be fine. We'll be able to complete the burn and still have enough left over for mid-course corrections and all of that. As far as I can tell, though, from my earlier testing of this particular mod, this spacecraft, there's no translation thrusters, and that, I guess, might be accurate to what the ICPS is being developed as. I don't know. But it doesn't seem like you can translate. So you can rotate the spacecraft using the little thrusters, and you can see it's set to rotate right now. But most spacecraft you can translate. You can nudge it forward, backwards, left, right, up, and down using the thrusters without rotating. But with this spacecraft, that doesn't seem possible, and that's a little annoying because it can make it more difficult to perform your mid-course corrections and really accurately trim things out, unless you have some sort of computer do it for you. We'll just have to deal with that. So basically, we'll have to use the big engine of the ICPS again, and I don't know how many times it's capable of restarting, or if it's capable of restarting. It may not be. I don't know. Maybe it's capable of 1 or 2 restarts, but I'm not going to worry too much about the realism there, because they didn't give me translation thrusters. How hard can it be, guys? Come on. Dick asks, does OSS have a Linux port? I don't know. I have Linux, but I've never tried to stream from Linux. I think there's a program available for streaming in Linux. It's, I don't know, maybe not. Honestly, I don't have much experience streaming from Linux, so. What's the ETA? Cyclow asks, or Cyclow. That's a good question, actually. I don't know. Probably another minute or 2 on this burn, and then it's actually 100. Man, I did the math wrong, didn't I? I did the math wrong before, but it's about 130 days simulation time to the intercept, which won't go. That'll go pretty quick. It won't take too long, because I'll be time accelerating massively to catch up to the time when the intercept actually occurs. And we'll stop at some point before that and perform a little mid-course correction. It shouldn't take too much. It should be a pretty short burn, not like this. This will definitely be the longest burn that we do. You can see we just dropped below 1,000 meters per second. Delta V left. We have about 8,500 kilograms of fuel left. So we've depleted most of our fuel. But I'm confident we'll have this burn completed before we run out of fuel, which is always good. And as you can see, as that delta V number decreases, as we get really low here, that green vector moves more. There's less velocity left to be added, so it's really critical to point the right direction now. Because early in the burn, if you start off slightly the wrong direction, you can correct, and you've still got a lot longer of a burn left to go, basically. So now we don't have much left of the burn. So a small error will contribute significantly to the position of that vector. .300 meters a second. And another thing is that in real life, most rocket engines have a fixed thrust level. There's only a few that can vary their thrust, or can vary their thrust very much. The Merlin engines are a rare exception to that. Most, especially upper stages, have just a fixed setting. They only run at one setting, full on. Fortunately, in Orbiter, they don't do that to you, because that makes it really tricky to be accurate in your burns. I can fire the thrusters just a little bit here to get a smaller burn going, which will be very necessary when we do a correction burn later. So it's a bit... Okay, see, we're already... Okay, you know, we're coming down to just a few meters a second now. Just a fraction of a meter per second. So I'm going to rotate the spacecraft. Nope, too far. Come on. It's really finicky now. Come on, past it there. I feel like the crosshair is like logarithmic or something. It feels like the closer it gets to the center, the more finicky it is. Just a little burn there. Okay, now we're at less than 1/10 of a meter per second delta V. So that's pretty accurate. We'll call that good. So now, hopefully, I'm gonna quick save, not that it matters. Hopefully, when I reset all of this, and turn off maneuver mode, I'm just going to turn off maneuver mode, and hopefully that will not glitch us out here. Maneuver mode off. Alright, good. So it shows our close approach distance of 291,000 kilometers. That's less than the distance between the Earth and Moon. So we only missed by 291,000 kilometers. Good. That sounds like a lot, but it's not actually. We can fix that with a correction burn later on. All right, let's take a look at where we are. Oh, is that Spain up there? Let's take a look at the map. Yeah, we're over Africa, just south of Spain. Cool beans. And our eccentricity is 1.47. We are hyperbolic relative to the Earth. We're leaving the Earth-Moon system. And we're off to intercept the interstellar asteroid. So I'll put it back on Transx now, and we'll just keep an eye on that close approach distance as we leave the Earth-Moon system. We can go ahead and rotate the spacecraft and try to get the Earth in our view here. Oh, went the wrong way. Whatever, doesn't matter. Rotated upside down here. Okay, so now we can relax. We made it. So, Alinka asks when we'll be able to see the stone live. Well, unfortunately, I don't really have a model of a stone to put into the simulator, so I just put the default spacecraft in as a intercept target. So we'll be able to see the mysterious alien spacecraft, maybe, as we whiz by it at almost 60 kilometers per second in just a little bit. Let's go ahead and accelerate time. This is 10 times normal speed. Let's go to 100. Bye-bye, Earth. Whoa, whoa, shoot. Accidentally hit the thrusters while under time acceleration. That was a bad idea. Fortunately, I didn't burn through all the fuel. That would have been a terrible thing. Okay. I just wanted to center up the view a little bit. Say goodbye to the blue marble. Whee! And off we go. There's the moon. All right. Let's bring it back. Right there. All right. Okay. Let's see. Whoa. Oh. Shoot. Probably should have gone ahead and done the... I forgot about that glitch. Jeez. Should have done the correction maneuver while I still had the chance. No, I can still do it, I think. But it glitches out and you lose the diagram altogether. Don't ask me why. I don't know. Okay. Let's say the ejection maneuver is very soon from now. And let's say... Oh, wait. What am I doing? I need to change it over here, actually. Okay, yeah, let's adjust that a little bit. Okay. All right. That'll give us some time to the maneuver. Now let's just try, it's going to be trial and error here, I think. Yeah. We can't see what we're doing, but we can see the numbers coming down on the close approach distance. So like I said, it's just going to be trial and error. And we may have to do an additional correction maneuver. This is pretty early to be doing a correction, but considering I just lost sight of the diagram, I'd rather do it now when it might be easier to figure out what I'm doing. Okay, that seems like a good move there. Approach distance. Oops, okay, coming back up. Let's do the next variable. Prograde. Oops, nope, nope, nope. It doesn't like that. Okay. Outward. Okay, so we just need to adjust outward and plane change. In terms of the prograde velocity we put on, it's pretty close to what we need. So basically we're just adjusting side to side and up and down to get our trajectory more accurate so that we intercept the object at a very close distance. But the outward velocity is pretty much on the money. Okay. There we go. Yeah, now it's dropping really good. Oop. Too far though. Let's come back to outward and do a little more of that. These variables are interdependent, so you have to change one, then you go change the other, and then come back to the one you changed and change it again. And you just cycle it back and forth like that till you get it down to the close distance that you want. That's why it's a little trickier for newbies to use these tools if you don't have prior experience, because you may say, well, why can't I get the close approach distance closer? Well, because you need to keep coming back to the same variables that you're adjusting and keep changing them until you get it right. You're just iterating. You're basically iterating your trajectory till you get it a perfect intercept. See, we're down to 3,000 kilometers, 2,000. Okay, now we're coming back up. Just wait till you go too far, and you bring it back a bit, and then you go with just a different variable. Oops, too much. Okay. .500 kilometers. 400 kilometers and closing. So we're getting there, despite the glitch. There we go. That's good. Change plane. 620, 17. Ooh, nice. Okay, if I do any more, it's going to be too much. I'm not going to be able to get much more accuracy than that. You can see the numbers still changing quite rapidly here. So, oh, oh no, what have we done? Oh crap. Oh crap. Yeah, this is not good. Oh, we may be toast. We may be toast. I think we may have exceeded the capabilities of Transax, because I can't see which way to point. Okay. Well, all right. Let's do this. We're gonna try. What? Oh, outward velocity. Okay. 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 What we're going to try to do is see. Oh gosh, I need a delta V counter. That's what I need. I don't have one in this version. Well, that's not good. Okay. I'm just going to try to watch these numbers. Nope, nope, nope. Okay. Let's go the other way. We're going to try a little trial and error here to do the maneuver in sections. Basically, we're doing a change plane and an outward maneuver, kind of like 90 degrees to prograde. And normally you would just do that all in one burn by combining the vectors and using Transax to tell you where to point. Since Transax isn't telling me where to point because the graphics are totally glitched out, I'm going to have to do this in sections where I do one component and then do the other component and just watch the delta V counter to try to get it close. Yikes. Houston, we have a problem. Okay. At least the number's coming down. So I'm not going to be too concerned about when it thinks I should start the burn and all of that now. I'm just going to do the best I can to get the delta V number to 0, because at this point we're not close to any particular body. It doesn't much matter when we do the burn precisely. It matters more that the burn itself is precise in terms of the velocity that we impart. So I'm going to keep the thrust low, and as soon as I see that delta V number start to go back up, I'm going to kill the engines. Because the delta V number should reflect not just how much velocity have you added, but how much velocity does that vector that it wants you to perform have. And so, yeah, it's starting to come back up now. Let me reverse my direction and try to trim that out a little bit. So, as long as that number's going down, you are doing the right thing to your orbit. Whatever it was you had planned to do, you're sort of doing it. So, yeah, this is going to make doing a precise intercept on an object that far away really, really hard. Maybe impossible. I don't know. We may have to settle for 1,000-kilometer close approach. We honestly might. But, you know, whatever. It's just a simulation, right? It's only a model. that's going to be it on that vector. So now we're going to go prograde and turn 90 degrees from that. And hopefully that'll give me the next vector. Because we've adjusted the plane, the orbital plane. But now we need to do the other thing. So, okay, where are you going to turn me? All right. I'll let it finish orienting the way it wants to go. Again, I'm not too concerned about the timer of exactly when this should happen, because we're only imparting a small amount of velocity, so the exact time that gets put on doesn't much matter. And it's not like we're trying to take advantage of any Oberth effect here or anything. Oops. Oh. Stop the autopilot. Okay. Now we turn 90 degrees. Hopefully this is the right 90 degrees. If it starts going up, then we turn the opposite way. Bit of trial and error here, because I don't know which way I'm supposed to point. Oh, that looks like the right way. Okay. Let's get it down. Oh, too much. Okay, let's go the opposite way. And whatever the rest of the component is, I don't know. I may have to settle for a quite high residual on the burn. Yeah. I'm gonna try doing a plane adjustment one more time to see if there's there's not gonna be anything left that I can do there. There's only so much accuracy I can get when I can't see where I'm supposed to actually point to do the burn. So let's just kill the rotation. Okay. Yikes. Alright, let's go back to transx here. Okay, let's kill maneuver mode. Useless. Oh. Maneuver mode off. 42,000 kilometers. That's closer, right? I think that's closer. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, let's try it one more time. This is not good. We know we shouldn't need prograde. You know, yeah, that's an interesting idea. I just had an idea. Instead of trying to fool around with maneuver mode, which is currently useless on account of the fact that it's not actually telling us where we need to point to perform the burn, we're just going to try some trial and error in terms of lowering the close approach distance with a real-time burn and just see what each burn does, each direction does to our close approach distance. So instead of iterating through virtual maneuvers, we'll iterate with real maneuvers. Hey, it's a bit like Apollo 13 here. We're actually having to work through problems, right? Okay, that's a bad. Okay, let's go the other way. And because we're still so far from the asteroid, it doesn't take very much velocity to have a big impact on your final close approach distance. And of course, most directions will result in further distances in various directions. But if you do a little bit of trial and error by breaking your trajectory down into its components, it may be possible to tune it. Because fortunately, we have tons of extra delta V left over. We have, you know, this little bit of fuel will actually go a long way, so that's good. So that's bringing it down. Okay, that's bringing it up now. Okay, let's try this direction. And unfortunately, it looks like these rotation thrusters aren't exactly perfect, that they do impart some translation on their own, and that's part of the problem, especially when you can't see where the real vector is. Even though there's not official translation thrusters on this thing, which makes this also more difficult, the rotation isn't perfect, and so it does impart a bit of a translation. Oops. Okay, that's the wrong way. Okay, let's go the other way. Let's see if we can speed things along here a bit. Okay. All right. Let's get it lined up. And then we'll try this direction. That's good. Okay, that's as good as I can get it there. Okay. Turn off the autopilot. And we'll bring it back this way. And we'll try a little bit of sideways burning. So we're already a lot closer on our intercept than we were before. We're still at 14,000 kilometers, but it's a lot better than it was. Okay, let's try this. Nope, completely the wrong way. So let's go, let's flip around 180 degrees. 270, okay. Then let's do that. Gosh, there's way too much dead zone on this joystick setting. I need to fix that. Okay. 10. Oh, darn. Okay, that's the wrong way. Whoa, 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 whoa. See, oh man, this is the issue. Sometimes just tapping the thrusters a little bit does weird translations and stuff to things, so you can't even keep it accurate. But we're now much better than we were, right? So encounter trajectory or encounter date is still shown, so we've still got more than 100 days until we encounter the object at almost 9,000 kilometers. So we can do another correction burn as we get closer. So I'm going to go ahead and time accelerate again. And you can see, yeah, it's showing it getting further away now anyway due to the perturbations. So let's go a lot closer to the intercept. We're just going to do the best we can here. And, you know, if you were NASA and you actually had the right tools to do all this, if you weren't flying blind like we currently are, it would be a lot easier to do a very close, you know, flyby intercept. And yeah, the encounter velocity is going to be huge, so you're not going to get much time to get your images or, you know, whatever you're going to do, laser topography, radar, who knows, whatever you're going to do to observe the object. You're not going to have a whole lot of time to do it. But it's an interstellar object from outside the solar system, so who knows what you might learn. The science return could be huge for major science points like in Kerbal Space Program. Okay. We're at maximum time acceleration. And we are now just over a month from intercept, and it's looking like we're going to pass about 187,000 kilometers at the current time. So, alright, that's good enough. So we're 30 days from intercept. Let's try, what should we try? Should we try trial and error again? Let's try trial and error again. I got no idea where the correct burn direction is going to be, but we're just going to try direction and see what we can get, because we have no display, we have no vector display, no solar system display. And I think, again, this is all because we're in a hyperbolic trajectory, or the object that we're trying to intercept is. Oh no, you know what it is? Chat's probably screaming at me. Is anyone screaming at me? You see the problem with this picture? I see the problem with this picture. It might be because the minor object for reference is the Earth. And the Earth, we're so totally out of the Earth sphere of influence at this point, and that's probably why it glitched. If I change this, it'll probably fix it. However, the problem is that TransX is known to glitch with hyperbolic objects like this. Doing anything, I'm scared, because this close approach distance might suddenly jump up, which doesn't actually mean we're going to miss, but it means you can no longer see what the true close approach distance is because it's glitched. So we're going to try to adjust things and get it as close as we can using our half-broken way of doing it, because it does still work. And then I'll try to fix the minor object reference if I can, once we get a little closer, because I think that's what the problem is. It's still looking for the Earth as a gravitational reference, and we're out of the Earth's sphere of influence, so it can't. I'll chalk this up to me being rusty with how to use TransX. It's been too long since I played Orbiter. I used to use this a lot for simulating Apollo missions and flights to Mars and back. And it's always fun when you have a tight delta V budget. Our delta V budget here is actually pretty generous compared to what I've done before. Okay, that's as much as I can get out of that direction. Alright, let's go this way. Again, I don't know what the correct burn direction is going to be for the next component, but let's try this direction off to the side here. I might need to flip around. I don't know. Okay, let's just see. Nope, this is the right direction. And we are consuming some fuel here. I'm just looking at the fuel consumption. I mean, it isn't taking nothing to do this. And this is a highly inefficient way of doing things, but I think we'll be okay. Oh, wrong way, wrong way. Let's just try a little burn this direction and see what it does for us. Okay, that's definitely the wrong way. Strongly the wrong way. Okay, let us do this. We'll do this component. And then we'll try doing a little prograde, because I think we've messed up our prograde velocity. Man, I had it wrong for a while. Okay, I think that's it for that direction. Okay, let's go prograde. retrograde maneuver. Oh yeah, that helps. That helps. Just sort of keeping it at minimum thrust. Dropping close approach distance. So, if you're just joining us, we're trying to intercept the interstellar asteroid Oumuamua in Orbiter Simulator. We've got a simulated spacecraft. The default spacecraft for the game has been spawned into a trajectory that matches Oumuamua, and we're trying to intercept it using the upper stage of an SLS rocket to see if it could be done with basically current technology. And we're down to 47,000 kilometers. Close approach distance. Okay, that's it. That's as much as I can do in that direction. Let's try this direction. And we're kind of flying blind because I glitched out TransX. And it's probably a really simple fix, I bet you anything, but because it's so glitchy with this hyperbolic trajectory, I just don't want to risk trying to fix it until I've done as much as I possibly can to minimize our close approach distance, because at least here we have a readout, some kind of reading on what our close approach distance will be. And I don't know how that matches up with like the standard sync orbit MFD. If I tell it, okay, I want to sync orbit with that, oh, it tells it to me in AU. 0.14 AU. That's way higher than it's actually going to be, because the sync orbit MFD is not designed to be used for this kind of flying, so it's not going to give us a very accurate reading. At least this is giving us a somewhat good idea of how close we're getting. Okay, and now we're aligned. This direction. Oh yeah, that's taking it out. I might just live with it. I don't even want to fool with it in terms of trying to fix the glitch, because it's too risky. Oh, that's it. Leave it alone. Okay, now we're down to under 3,000 kilometers close approach. That's much better. Much better. Okay. And see, even if I tap the thrusters, it changes it by like 200 kilometers, the close approach distance. So we're still pretty far out. Even 30 days out, we're still pretty far from it. And so the slightest thrust can dramatically change the final close approach distance. The slightest little puff of thruster firing. It's really sensitive. Okay. Gosh. And so I'm trying to make the minimum number of thruster firings to even get me in the right orientation, so that I don't influence the trajectory too much. But that's really difficult. Okay. Let's just see. Yeah. Yeah, that helps. Oh, okay, that doesn't help anymore. Let's go back prograde and try that. So we're basically just iterating in real time using these real burns to iterate the close approach distance like we would if we were setting up a virtual burn. But that doesn't help because it doesn't tell us which way to point once we've done all that. Ah, wrong way. Okay, so we need some retrograde velocity. And there's no retro rockets on this rocket, so we have to actually physically turn around and point the other way. Yeah, there's a lot of things working against us here. Okay, there's the retrograde direction. So we're facing opposite direction of our direction of travel around the sun. And we're going to burn that way. Oh, that helps a lot. Oh, yeah. Okay, that's too much, a little bit. But yeah, that's now down to just under 1,500 kilometers close approach distance. That's pretty good, considering the limitations of what we're doing right now. It's pretty good. Alright, I think at this point we're going to fast forward it 2 weeks and get us closer to the encounter date. Yeah, we're gonna fast forward a couple weeks here and get us closer to the close approach date. Because you can see that number is going to change anyway over time. 15, 20, 21. Okay. So now we're much closer. We'll even go forward a day or two more. Okay. So now we're 2 weeks from the time of close approach. Yeah, save and restart. Oh, sample return says he's done transits with hyperbolas and he's done hyperbolic rendezvous with it. Says a save and restart could fix it. That's probably true. I'm just really I don't want to screw it up for the stream, so I might try that once we get it tuned in a little bit here with a bit of trial and error, and hopefully that'll fix it. But I've had it giving me issues with saves and restarts. That particularly has been really disastrous for the glitches I've been getting with transits today. Okay. That's looking good. A little more, a little more. Oh, a little more. Oh, too much. Okay. Now let's go this way. And it should be said that we're attempting a flyby here. We're not attempting a to go into orbit or dock with this thing or anything like that, because no, because I can't. Don't have the fuel. Not even close. We're just gonna whiz by it at almost 60 kilometers per second. Kind of like the New Horizons probe flying by Pluto. Although I don't know, but I suspect their close encounter velocity was a lot lower than that. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. It's hard to say. Sometimes these things are counterintuitive. Okay, now we're under 1,000 kilometers. Oop. Okay, that's enough. That's enough. Stop. Let's go prograde. So we're getting there. So sample return, sounds like you've got some experience with the orbiter then. Oh, okay, we need retrograde. Yeah. Yeah, I know sample return. My encounter velocity is incredible. Because we're not attempting to orbit this thing. This is basically I'm recreating one of the scenarios in this paper that was done to study the idea of the feasibility of intercepting Oumuamua, the interstellar asteroid. And one of the scenarios did call for a very quick flyby, high encounter velocity. I'm not sure if they had their version quite that high, but the general idea was, yeah, you go whizzing by it, and you just get what science you can in the milliseconds that you are close to it. Okay, 428 kilometers, that's not too shabby. I meant to go the other way. Oh well. Oh yeah. That helps. 300. Okay, 319. I think that's good for now. Let's fast forward it to a week before encounter. Okay, we are now basically a week before encounter. Oh. Okay, 6 days before, a little over 6 days before encounter. All right, let's try. We could even go a little closer, I bet. I don't want to go too far, but all right, 5 days. Let's try that. Okay, let's go retrograde first. Let's just see if we need any tuning in that direction. Yeah, Orbiter does have a great physics engine. It is, in my opinion, the best free space simulator out there for realism. Yep, okay, this is help. Oh, nope, too much. Alright, that didn't help. I think we were actually pretty close there on what we can do with prograde, retrograde. So we'll go prograde and fix what we just did. And I don't know why I'm using the orbiter autopilot. That was stupid. I should just do it myself. Because it'll require less thruster pulses to do that. Doing it myself. Let's go 90 degrees. Okay. I'm trying to go perfectly horizontal here. It's not quite close enough. All right. Get lined up. Let's try this direction. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's doing it. Oh, yeah. Okay, that's it. That's it for that direction. Now let's try this direction. And you can see, like, even now, just slight thruster pulses are throwing me off by kilometers. Ooh, oh, beautiful. Okay, that's as good as we're going to get this far out. just under 15 kilometers close approach distance. I'm going to quick save there just in case. Okay, let's go forward, and we are on course. Oh yeah, and actually we're in a vector now that the perturbations are causing it to actually get closer. The close approach distance is actually decreasing with time now, which is nice and favorable. Though it may start getting further away again. Yep, there it goes. We're now 4 days out. Three days. We'll go to 1 day out from close approach. Okay, we are 1 day out from close approach. Let's try something. Okay, let's try this direction since we're close to it. I have no idea if this is going to be the right direction or not. But we still got plenty of delta V to play with, so we can make some mistakes and ford it. Yeah, that's the wrong direction. Okay, so we're going to flip around 180 degrees. That's good, that's good. Oh, too much. I do want to actually fix that. That was a little too much. Minimumed around 30, I think. Oh, okay. Well, the other thruster pulses have thrown me further off course. Okay. Let's try some sideways stuff. Yeah, that's good. Ooh, really nice. Less than 10 kilometers. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, too much. I'm pretty sure I need to go this way now. Close approach, 596 meters. That's as close as we're going to be able to hope to get, I think. And it's not going to matter much because we're going to whiz by at 60 kilometers a second. And look at that, just that one little thruster pulse of stopping threw us off 6 kilometers. I mean, that's just amazing. We're 24 hours out. We're not that far out. But at these speeds, the distances covered in 24 hours are huge. And so I don't even... gosh. Yeah, I don't even... I mean, think about it this way, right? Close approach distance is right now about 6 kilometers. We're going to whiz by it at 60 kilometers per second. So the difference between the current close approach distance and hitting the object is only 1/10 of a second. So we're as good as we're going to get, basically. And trying to go further past this point is a little neurotic, honestly. For the purposes of this simulation, 1/10 of a second, yeah, it's not much going to matter, is it? So 1/10 of a second, even if I slow time down to the minimum this simulator will let me, is only 1 full second at 1/10 speed. Okay, all of that said, I think we're at the point now where we're basically ready to move into Orbiter 2010 and get ready to fire up the telescope MFD so we can track the object as we go flying by it very quickly. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and in OBS I'm going to put up the paper again just to do that so you have something to look at while I close this version of the simulator. And I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it like 3 different ways because I don't want to lose my progress here. Oh, it won't let. Okay, I don't have a scenario editor open. Okay, fine. Well, I'll just quick save a couple times just to be absolutely sure that we don't lose our progress. Okay, and then I'm going to copy that scenario file over to Orbiter 2010. Fire up Orbiter 2010. Oh, okay, I guess it was already running. Or no, another version is already running. Didn't like that. Okay. Okay, so now we're in Orbiter 2010, so I'm going to fire that up. So now I'll share the Orbiter 2010 window. Okay, so you guys should now be seeing Orbiter 2010. And we've got Telescope MFD fired up and we are aimed at our object. And now you can see here Transx is goofed up again. It thinks the close approach is going to happen here and somewhere out here when we're here in our orbit and the interstellar object's way the heck out here, and that's not the case at all. And I might be doing something wrong in the setup here that's causing this, but this is totally wrong. So I don't know what's going on there, but that's not right at all. So let's go to, let's just see, this will tell us our current distance, and we should end up passing it pretty darn close. So we're basically 24 hours from close approach. So on October 11th at about 1400 hours, we should be passing right by our object. Let's see what happens. So yeah, here you can see target distance here on Telescope MFD as well, 0.03 AU, and closing. I'm going to turn this MFD off. It's pretty much useless. But I need to leave Telescope MFD on. I think I need to leave it on anyway. We can zoom in. I don't know if we will see anything. Let's go to 1 degree field of view here. So field of view is now 1 degree, so about twice the full moon's width would be filling this view, only you don't see anything because there aren't enough stars in the simulator to populate the field of view, so it looks like a black screen. It says press F1 twice if target is not visible. Ooh. Yeah, we're zoomed in there on the spacecraft. Yeah, still not visible, probably because it's outside the render distance, way outside. I don't know if it'll ever be visible, actually, because we're going to be whizzing by it so quick I'm going to try to slow it down to 1/10 speed when we get really close, so we'll see. $900,000 kilometers and closing. Tell you what, I do actually want to zoom out a bit. I would like to see some stars in view, just to see if this view is changing and all. Is it changing relative position? I mean, we should be pretty much coming on straight onto the object almost, so these stars, these little dots down here probably won't change position much at all until it goes flying by us. .003, 0.002 AU. So we're already closer to it than the moon. Still don't see it. Okay, we're under 100,000 kilometers. I mean, yeah, at this point, if you were a real spacecraft with a real telescope, you could see it probably. But I can't. Let's see if I do. Yeah, sometimes if I turn on planetary mode, so you can turn on planetary mode to see constellations and stuff, and it'll also highlight other spacecraft if they're close enough, which, again, the duration for which this will be close enough may be too small to matter, but it should say GL-01. That's the name of the virtual asteroid, which is actually a spacecraft in the simulator. So we should see a box like that appear as we get closer here. What time is it? We're a few minutes from close approach, so I'm going to go ahead and accelerate a little bit. Okay, we're getting really close now. 7,000 kilometers and closing. See anything. 6,000. Accelerate a little bit. Let's get it down. Alright, this is it, guys. Oh, it's starting to... The field of view is starting to shift slowly as this thing flies by us. We're now at 2,000 kilometers, closing. It's going to go roaring right past us. It may not even render in time. We're now 1,000 kilometers. 8, 7, 6. I'm going to slow it down to 1/10 time. Okay, we're at 1/10 time acceleration. At this point, the MFD for telescope MFD will update only occasionally because its update is based on the time of the simulator itself. So it's only occasionally going to update. We're already at 400 kilometers distance and closing. Oh, there it is. There it is. It's just a red dot. And look, here we go. Now we're talking. It's an alien. We're at a really high magnification now. And the renderer is a little bit glitchy. The simulator wasn't designed to render objects this far away or at this extreme magnification. I should retitle this video Proof. Oumuamua, sorry, is an alien spacecraft. I have the video proof. I'm going to zoom out a bit. Turn off. Ooh, and we go flying by. Whoosh. And there it goes. We did it. We had a flyby of Oumuamua using the SLS rocket. So that was pretty cool. We did it. I'm quite happy I was able to pull that off with flying blind, with transects half broken. And maybe a reset would have fixed it, but didn't want to risk it, just in case, with all the progress we made there. And we managed to pull it off, so all's well that ends well. So yeah, December 26th, I'm planning to do a charity event, the night of December 26th, if the weather's good. If the weather's not good, maybe we'll do something like this, some other Orbiter challenge, and raise money for charity for the Starlight Foundation. It's the Starlight Children's Foundation raises money to provide comfort to children in the hospital around the country. They do various events to cheer up kids who are sick in the hospital. And recently they did a Star Wars event here in Florida, in Orlando. They had a virtual reality experience that was put together for the kids at the Orlando, Florida hospital. And so we'll be raising money for them. I'm hoping to raise a few $100s at least. So we'll see how that goes. So tune back in for a live stream charity event on December 26th. And I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas, if I don't see you before then. Thanks for coming, guys. Astronomy Live, signing off.